Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lifter. My name's Charles McGillivray, and as always, I'm joined by Jess Kettle and Simon Stacey. We're a fans podcast by fans for fans of Northampton Saints. How you both doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate.
Good. What do you think of the weekend?
Bit of an exhibition, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to spend more time talking about the legitimacy of the South African teams being in the tournament than we are about tries being scored.
But, yeah, I did geography at school, and I never knew that South Africa was in Europe. But yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
a bit of a joke, isn't it? Really?
the thing is, there's nothing wrong with them being in the comp, but then they've got to be incentivized and worked with to make sure that they're sending their best teams to these games, because like they've obviously got a big game this weekend at home, a local, a South African derby, whatever. So they're prioritizing that. They're going to get a big crowding, they want to get a victory there. But like that's not really their fault, is it? That they've been put in that position. Like the organisers of this competition, it's like they've got to find a way to make this work, because you can't criticise Saints because they can only beat the team in front of them, and they did a lot of things really well. But I mean, some of those players that they were playing against, like, I mean, they just weren't up to spec at all, were they?
Nope, not at all.
Nope. No, I saw a lot of. I mean, I peruse Reddit a lot, so I'm in kind of like different rugby chats for that, and like there's a lot of them that, because if I'm right in thinking that they just got rid of Jake White, or however long, I don't know the time scale on that, but they were writing comments about, it seems that getting rid of him wasn't the answer, yada yada, and like the other coaches have got a lot to answer for. And I'm like, well, I don't know how much of it's really their their fault. It's really difficult. Like someone had posted against Saint Sinners that like they'd seen the team here from Wednesday, so that's how early they have to come, and then probably the length of time on the other side of that to like, it's not much in terms of like time difference, I know from that perspective, but there's still a long old flight, like after you've played a game of rugby, like that still takes it out of you for a few days, like it does anybody traveling that distance. And so they're not going to send they're just not going to do it. Like I wouldn't do it in their situation either. They didn't do it when we last played them and we put like a fairly similar score line on the board against them. Like I really don't feel like they're the ones that are responsible for that. Like whoever is in charge of South African rugby has made this decision, and I feel like the clubs are just doing what they feel like they have to do. And the reality is that, like you said, that their priority is probably going to be, the domestic games are. I say domestic because they're also in the URC, aren't they? But like, the competition that they're playing week in, week out, and that just isn't Europe. And so I don't really know what we expect of them.
Well, they're going to prioritise their the home games, aren't they? The home fan base.
Yeah,
like they've got to try and build
100%,
up crowds and get excited. And it's the fact that it's a local, South Africa team. If they were playing the Scarlets or something, I don't know, maybe they would have taken a different approach. But it's just like you got to think about the real big picture of what's occurred. The South African team players have travelled on a plane 17 hours to come up to play that game, have 50 points put on them, and then they're going to travel 17 hours back. Like, it's not worth it. It really doesn't make any sense. There's got to be an incentive for them to make it worth it. And especially with the way that groups work, they might still scrape through. I doubt they will, but they could do, because it's lots of teams seem to get through. I just their fly half couldn't kick kick anything, could he? I mean, like that. I know he was on debut and everything, but come on, that's not the standard we expect in the pinnacle tournament.
Yeah, it feels like that's maybe where their like disappointment is justified. Of like, you can say they've left all their best players at home, and maybe they don't really shoulder the blame for that. But at the same time, you've got like a lot of players, like young players that you said, at least one on debut, that if you can't get yourself pumped up for that to try and make a bit of a name for yourself or put like a good game on the pot, even if you come away losing, if you put in a good performance, like you're telling the coaches that this is what you're capable of, and this is what they're going to see if they play you regularly. But they just, I mean, even the 5 points they got on the board was because we dropped a ball, they picked it up, and someone happened. Like they didn't have to work for it.
Yeah,
And the reality was
100%.
is the reality was is that they literally, and I'm not saying it like I had to come across like sounding really really mean or like judgmental, but they really offered nothing.
No,
It never
absolutely
felt.
not.
I didn't feel for a single second of that game, literally, except for the time they ran that try, and like that there was a threat on that park in any shape or form. And I think they're probably lucky that we had another first half a little bit similar to last week, where I think there's probably 3 tries that we left out there that we should have scored. Like, it could have been. I feel like there's a chance it could have been really ugly, and it already was. It already is kind of ugly on the scoreboard. You know,
It's
we still
madness,
dropped a
isn't it?
few. We still,
It's
yeah.
madness, isn't it?
So
That when he stepped up for that, was it like a 50-meter penalty? I thought, is this like Francois
yeah,
Stay reincarnated? And then he hardly got it off the tee. I was like,
yeah.
"What? You backed yourself there, and you absolutely fluffed it. It didn't even make the
Oof.
posts."
Maybe
Daisy Cutter,
It
maybe
barely got off the
altitude it
ground.
was sailed over, maybe, but not at sea level.
blimey! I was like,
Oh, it was.
blind. Can this boy kick from there? Fair play to him, and he didn't even get it the height of the crossbar. I don't think. It's
Yeah,
absolutely shocking.
It's not very often that to be fair we've come away from games and I've sort of thought it's happened like maybe a couple of times where I'm like you could almost unfortunately almost like pinpoint like because their whole team didn't really perform, but when even within that you can kind of pinpoint one person that really particularly had a bad day. It just feels, you just feel a bit, you feel a bit sorry for them, really, isn't it? Really, because you know they've been selected to go, and they've basically been told like they know that their selection is because they're not considered, you know, the first team players that they want to have in the big fixtures, and the whole situation is probably really really difficult. And you could definitely sense like frustration. Like I think when, and again, I don't, I can't remember most of their players' names. I think I only knew like 3 on the sheet. So any of their fans that might be listening, apologies. But you know, their player that got yellow carded. I mean, the way he was screaming in Holly's face, he's so lucky that didn't get upgraded. I
yeah,
thought that was
that needs
when
citing, doesn't it? That's not
when,
acceptable.
when,
Did
when you've got your captain, you've got your own captain physically holding you back because he thinks you're going too far. And I think she handled that masterly. Like she even still said, you know, this player is, you know, she could have said he shouted at me, I'm not going to listen to anything he said. But she said he's adamant that this happened to him as well as him doing it. So I'm going to check. You know, she did everything right
yeah.
in that situation. But you don't get into, you never get into a ref's face like that ever. Like I thought that was so disrespectful and like, unacceptable. And I think, you know, that their captain felt the same way. But also, yeah, I can see also how, you know, you're on the end of a really bad scoreboard. It's going to be made worse when you leave the field. That there definitely is some frustration, but there are ways to manage that, and that is not one of them. It is never should be one of them. And so yeah, it was just a really, really bad day for them all round, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you mentioned, I know we don't want to go off the game, but you mentioned Holly there. I have to say, wasn't it a breath of fresh air to actually have a referee that knew what she was doing?
Yeah, she's a good ref, Holly Davidson.
She is a
Absolutely
really good ref,
amazing.
yeah.
Listening to her on the thing, she kept everybody like in place. She knew what she was doing. She knew all the rules. Can we just not have her in the Prem? Because God, she's
good
levels above.
referee.
And she's also working on, considering as well, she was working with, like, you know, when they put up on the screen, you know, terrible camera angles, like,
Yeah,
you know,
out.
and having to work with really terrible angles to try and figure out what happened and keeping her calm and keeping her composure. And just, I just also feel that, like we've said it before, sometimes the way that I don't love the way that some refs communicate with players. I'm like, if you want the respect from the players, like I still feel like it's a two-way street, even though the ref is still the authority of the game. Whereas like that's what I mean. I think that's why she's a you know, she's like definitely a breath of fresh air, because like players are happy to talk to her, she's happy to talk back, but she still puts, you know, there's still limits in place. You know, she has said to people like that is not how I've seen it. That's the end of the discussion. But she is still happy to, like you said, listening to her on the ref mic. It was a much nicer experience than what we get sometimes. But also it's again difficult because that was a pretty easy game, I would say, to for the most part. Like, you know, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't really a lot happening, particularly from their side of it.
There weren't any calls that were going to determine the game. I mean, I mean, I think we sort of try our best to stay away from ref talk. I'll be honest, but sometimes it just you can't help yourself because it's such big impact on the game. The decisions, it probably more so than any other sport. Rugby decisions are so fundamental, and interpretation is so fundamental. But the even still I think refs need to probably be held accountable more than they currently are. It's not an amateur sport; they're professionals. They need to do their job at a professional standard. But you still need to have that base level human respect, and I think the South African player unfortunately stepped over the line, and that's not the image. And I know it's not important, and it's not this might not be the right thing to say, but the fact also that you've got a big massive bloke shouting at a tiny little woman, and I mean that's probably not the right, but it's not a good look for the sport, regardless of whether that's the right thing or not to say. But it's like
no, I think it is a fair comment, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, like, I still feel that, like, I feel the same of like punditry, the same for reffing. Like, anybody should be able to do it on any game within the sport. I firmly believe that. But yeah, there is definitely still like a difference between, and I would say that if you had like a male referee that was really small against somebody who was really big, like there's a disparity there. I mean, you saw it kind of the week before, right? I mean, when Andy Christie for Saracens just smashed into her, like, and she just got up and carried on, but like that would have hurt. That would have hurt going down like that, right? But yeah, it wasn't. It's not a good look, no, when you've got a big player sort of shouting in so like you said, someone who's smaller in stature than them. And yeah, I think the captain was, and again, I heard him on the ref mic that he just, after she explained the decision, he just accepted it, said he was sorry, even though it's not his apology to make, really, and just, he knew that. I mean, like I said, I don't think I've ever, unless it's maybe just something I've forgotten, but it's a really rare thing where you've got sort of your own teammate having to hold you back from a ref. Like, it's such a bad.
I've never seen it. No,
I really don't recall one.
No.
Like,
the thing is, like,
and I don't think it was ever going to. Not that I ever for any second I'm suggesting it was going to become a physical thing, but you are in her face screaming at someone, and I could hear him over the ref mic, obviously. So you could tell he's screaming at her, and I think she handled herself perfectly. She still was like, well, yes, he shouldn't be shouting at me like that, but he has said something, he's made an accusation. I still feel she'd have been totally within her rights just to say, well, I'm not going to respond to that. But she still did. She had another look, couldn't see anything, went through with it. And it just, it was probably the only real kind of sour part of the day, really. I don't think that's a good, you shouldn't do it. I think most players would agree with that and say that they shouldn't anyway. And hopefully, I don't know if anything's going to come out of it outside of that, but I'm hoping that a big full apology was given to her at the end of that game. I'd like to hope.
The thing you say about that is, like you said, she then reviewed it, even though she shouldn't have. But it's only because, I don't know if you heard on the refereeing, it's only because Ferbs kind of dobbed him in the first place, didn't he? So he said that. Sorry, I don't know what you call a female ref. Is it ma'am? I don't know. He said ma'am.
I think they some. It's what the ref says. Most of them,
ma'am, I think normally.
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Some do get called sir, and I think most of them just called her Holly. I think she just.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think she just goes with Holly.
He just said to her, he went straight to her and said, one of our players just got kicked, and then that's why they reviewed it, and then he lost his head and said, look, he kicked me first, didn't he? And it was just the way he reacted. I was like, she's going to bring out the red card, but she went, no. Apparently, he got incited, so she went and looked at it again. I was like, fair play to her, because like you said, that should have been another yellow card, straight red card. You don't do that. It's not football, man. It's not football.
No, I think that's right. It probably should have been a red card because of your reaction. But you got to say fair play to her because she went to try and get the right outcome. She didn't. So many referees in that scenario go ego driven and go, well, you can't talk to me like that, and their ego gets on top of them, and then it gets out of hand. But she dealt with it well.
I'd seen her a few weeks, I can't think of what game it is. I'm pretty sure it was an international. And she said something, and then she saw it on the screen, and she looked at it. She said, "No, I've made a mistake. That's my It's just really refreshing to see someone." Yeah, I did think it was international, just to actually just put your hands up and go, "No, I've got that wrong," And it wasn't that someone didn't. Sometimes they get corrected, and that's all well and good. But no, she just sort of looked at it on the screen whilst I think they were setting up for a scrum, and she's gone, "No, I've got that wrong. I need to make a different decision." It's refreshing, but but like you said,
a few weeks ago when they saw something on the screen and said, "Well, I can't change my decision now that I've seen it on the screen." It just shows you there's levels to this.
Isn't it a breath of fresh air that we're actually talking about a referee in a positive note for once?
Yeah, I feel like there's plenty of times when the referees are pretty good and we just don't comment on it. And then unfortunately there are occasions when, like I said, we don't want this to be a slagging off refs chat for an hour, but sometimes it's such a fundamental part of the sport and of the outcome, and you can't go, oh well, yeah, they didn't, you can't lie, like either if a bad decision costs a game, then you've got to tackle it, haven't you? Because it's part of the sport.
It's also one of those that when there's a good performance from a referee, you don't really notice them. I think that's sort of what the point is meant to be, right? If there's a game where you're not supposed to, other than calling for penalties and things and stuff like that, like you're not really supposed to notice them. So I think sometimes like the good ones you just don't really tend to notice as much, whereas like you said, like bad calls do always kind of stick out. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, that was really the only call she had to make. So it was probably quite a nice probably quite a nice match for her to have to do, to be fair. But yeah, it does all really just come down from the fact that, like I said before, like the Bulls just unfortunately they offered nothing.
Yeah, like I said, like they only scored that try because of it was a bad bit of play from Saints. They put Ollie under a lot of pressure, and the reason why, and I think this was why the first half wasn't really the score that it should have been. I think Bulls were probably pretty physical first half, and we weren't at our best, but we weren't matching them right. We were probably trying to find an edge too quickly, like rather than going through our normal phase play of occupying defenders so that we can create that edge. And physical up front, but earning the right to go wide, sort of in old parlance. But rather than doing that, we were just trying to shift it, and you got too many times when Ollie just got the ball, but he already had a man basically in his face, and he's dropping the ball because he's trying to protect himself essentially, yet also catch a ball.
Exactly.
And I think JJ was probably a good example of that. There was a few times where in the first half, JJ sort of, you drop the ball. It's sort of the things I've maybe said over the last few weeks, whereby like I think he's got levels to go because I think his handling can improve. And the first half was probably a bit more of that. Second half, however, like once we'd sort of won that physicality battle and they'd just given up, let's face it, they checked out. But his hands are amazing. It's like we need to get those hands in the moments when the pressure's on and when the game's tight. That composure, because like that little out the back door on the wraparound for Finn, like come on,
like
how do you do that?
We have to talk about this. Like that one passage of play that he did 3 of them, and like different. It's absolutely outrageous. Like the crowd around. I'm assuming it was like the whole stadium. Obviously, you're kind of deafened a bit by who's around you, but like they sort of cheered the first one, and then they cheered the second one, and then that third one came in, and everyone went mental. Like it's outrageous to be able to have those kind of and to do 3 on the bounce.
Was it for Coles? Was it Coles' try? It was Coles' try.
Where he put Kemeny away, didn't he, down the right? Yeah. That one when he put Kemeny around, he threw the ball down. Like, because he's so tall. Like, he had his hand up, he threw the ball downwards to Kemeny.
Yeah. Most other people, they do it like a basketball pass where it still has to kind of go, he just was like, oh. And you can't say it very often that there's, very often that, someone's passing a ball down to someone like Kemeny. But yeah, I was absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe those. If it wasn't for the fact that he obviously looks like he's a second row, like that's not where you should be playing, mate. Like those hands were absolutely obscene.
It's the fact he got back in 3 times and was involved 3 times.
Back in the line.
Everyone saying he can't get around the pack. Bloody hell! That try was, I don't know if I can say this, but it was pure filth. It was just like you could hear people go, oh, like oh, is that It was just every little pass is like, wow, there was some. Lovely hands.
I mean, we were really on it in that second half. Like it was like, the Saints that we have wanted to see that we've seen, even when we said the win that we'd had the week before, I was like, we were still only really at kind of like 75%, like, and there were like flashes of it. But that second half was just full flow for like pretty much the whole half. It was glorious. But like you said, how much is a part of the fact that just like we were essentially allowed to do whatever the hell we wanted to be honest. Once we got to a certain point of the game, because that was close at halftime. Was it 14-7? Was it not? Like, or 14-7, 45, yeah. I was trying to think. I'm sure he did make the kick. So that's pretty close by anyone's standard.
Definitely.
But once it opened up, boy, did it. I mean, I didn't envy whoever had to pick man of the match, because I reckon about 10 of the 15 you could have easily made a case for. Genuinely, like it was ridiculous. There were some ridiculous performances in there.
Hendy got a hat trick and didn't get man of the match.
When they announced it, I was like, oh, it's got to be Hendy. He's got a hat trick. I was like, oh, okay, Finn. But to give him his due, Finn was back, weren't he?
Yeah,
definitely back.
His like you think about everything that, because I remember thinking the same thing. Like I said, I was sort of it's hard when you're sort of watching it live, because sometimes like on telly you get a bit more of a benefit of like replays of certain bits and commentators putting stuff out. But no, you watch the highlights back and you see like all of the tries, and he is an absolute like linchpin and involved in every single aspect of that. Like I totally understood the decision having seen it back. But like it's not every day that someone scores a hat trick, and let's be honest, like it's probably the easiest hat trick he's ever had to. I mean, they were just run-ins for most of them, like, but yeah, it was just such a good performance from everyone all around. I mean, we'd even said before that I think in some performances like Tame had struggled a tiny bit, but he came on for the blood replacement, put through 2 glorious kicks that worked out really well in terms of gaining ground. I thought he was definitely really good. And so that's what I mean. I feel like you could have.
Just to cover those 2 kicks, I thought those 2 kicks were really fundamental in just turning the tide a bit. Just playing a bit of territory and getting their mindset back right. Rather than trying to fry it round the corner every time, a couple of really good kicks through a bit of territory just put them back into their processes, which then destroyed them because they weren't there. But sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes us realise like how many players we've kind of got in that squad that really know how to read a game in like split seconds, because you're having to make those decisions 99.9% of the time you're making those decisions really quickly. You've spotted space, or you think you've spotted a defender out of position, whatever it might be. And I think and it isn't even just reading it as well, it's also being able to execute them, and they were just perfectly executed as well. And then obviously you went off with Rory coming back on. I think he had like a big gash down his leg, I think I heard one of the ARs say. But I thought that was a really, really good kind of like cameo of time. But God, I wouldn't have wanted to have been able to pick, because I honestly sort of think who could have made an argument for anyone, I felt like.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was a toss-up between the halves. I thought Mitchell was outstanding again, and then I thought Finn was brilliant. I think the story writers probably like Finn a bit more, because it's that sort of, he's been off form and he's sort of coming back and he's making statements, but Mitchell's operating at levels like unbelievable at the moment. That the sort of step and movement, I know it probably doesn't look all that great really, but the Coles try, Mitchell is just every hand fingerprints all over it, and then the sort of composure and just to create the space for Coles and that last thing. I mean, Cole said in an interview in the week I read, I think, where he's like, you just follow Mitchell around the pitch as much as you can, because he just will put you in space. He's just his ability to draw and give and if not beat the man in front of himself is class.
I mean, there's
he's on another level.
There's something between them at the moment as well, isn't it? Because the previous game was the passes between the two of them to set Coles up for his. You wouldn't think every day. You wouldn't think like, oh yeah, the 9 and 4 make a really good pairing. But there's sort of something about where they both get themselves in positions at the moment, and like, we've talked about Colsey as well, like the actual pace he's got on him, just to be able to keep up with. Because Mitchell is, we talked about it before, like the pace at which he works is ridiculous. Like, it kind of tells you about the fitness levels of the squad in general, that all of them can keep up with that and play with that pace. But I mean, I still would have probably said, a hat trick probably still deserves man of the match. So like, I'm loving watching him play at the moment. And so Hendy did definitely have a really, really good, fantastic game. He's just so fun to watch. Like,
he is fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but he had a weird game in some instances where like a few things sort of bounced off his nose, or like he almost put a grubber through for them to, like, he came running back to capture a ball over his shoulder, sort of missed the catch, landed on his shin, and he basically grubbered it through for them to almost score. Like, so like he had a few moments where it's just like I don't know what's going on. Like, it's a bit calamity here, but he's so talented, so physical.
Yeah, and I don't think that first one was like, I think someone threw it and it just square whacked him in the nose. Like, it just...
I think he should have taken that one. But it was Furbank absolutely belted it out.
Yeah.
And he should have hit him bang in the middle of the chest, and he should have got it. But that's uber critical. It was a heartbeat. It's one of those ones where like so many things clicked, and then there was a few where it's like, oh God, this is hilarious sort of thing. But it was all right. I think the more and more game time he gets back from injury and whatnot, the more of those things will just click, and it'll be
Yeah,
it'll be better.
100%. Yeah.
He's a great player to
I
watch.
mentioned another player. Pearson was an absolute beast again. I know he was. I don't know if you guys listened to him on the radio. He got interviewed by Lenny and Graham.
Yeah.
And they said that they targeted Poe, Balls, and Sale as like 3 physical games, so and just to make up for the Bristol annihilation as it was. But yeah, he just sounded. The boy's on fire, isn't he? There's no way even Pollock's not getting him out of the 7 shirt at the minute.
No. Well, he plays in that back row, regardless of number. Like Pierce is playing at this point. He's on form.
I also felt that it was kind of the first time as well that I felt like we'd seen some of the like old flashes of what Kemeny capable of. I thought he had a really strong game as well, because there's obviously been a few where, not necessarily in the Poe in the Poe or Bristol game, because our line out like was functioning so well and he was catching all the balls clean and stuff, so he's still doing good stuff, but we actually saw kind of more flashes of what he's capable of with ball in hand, because you kind of, we harken back to last season when all the time we were just talking about how he's just running down the wing, running tries it, and then he kind of fell off the pace a little bit and was injured for a while. So yeah, it's also really good to see him back up, and then having Pollock on was just, well, it's having Pollock on, isn't it? Like, there's just something about him. That run, I wish he hadn't tripped himself up, because he just would have been in.
He just got touched,
didn't he?
Just a little tap tackle,
and he couldn't quite recover in time.
He just needed to lengthen his stride a bit, and then he would have been able to jump. But it was just, he was sort of chasing his feet a bit, whereas the trick in those instances is to just lengthen your stride a bit more, and then you can get that good launch towards the line. But we scored off the back of it, obviously. But I thought it's interesting because we discussed it. He was the one we said, he might come in at 8 before the game. We probably called that correctly, I think, because he hasn't had many starts, and it was really good because he probably was a little bit, and he did some great. I mean, he got the assist for the slide home try, and he did lots of really nice bits around the pitch. But he probably didn't really come into the game at the peak levels of how good he is until that last half hour. Like there's a bit more space in the game, and then he was just electric as he is, and he scored his try later on as well. But like it almost makes you understand maybe why they make that decision. Because you want him at his peak in that last 30, because the game is he can have a massive impact, but he actually maintained his standards throughout the whole game, regardless. So it's like you don't need to save him for the bench; you can just play him, and he will still. I think I read somewhere that after one of the games, etc., where we put on a good score, he jogged home because he didn't feel it was enough of a physical challenge. Like he's a freak athlete, and I know he's got. I think his sister's a triathlete, maybe, and his mum's a triathlete or whatever. They're all great athletes, so it's just obviously in his genes. But he's a bunny, a boy of energy, and he.
But I always feel it's sort of a difficult thing with him though, because it feels like it's almost like if he doesn't do something like absolutely outstanding, like people seem to have this idea in his mind that he didn't have a good game, and I was like, you need to actually watch it. Like, people seem to forget
quiet, but he's still got assists. He's still got great tackles. Yeah,
still got assists and great tackles. And I remember again, I was like on Reddit afterwards, and people were talking about him, and someone was like, he might do all this flashy stuff, but he doesn't do all the stuff like tackles and stuff. And I was like, he was like the top tackler in one of the top in the European stats, and got turnovers for fun. So I was like, you're also not paying attention to what you should be paying attention to. Yeah, he can do the flashy stuff, but he's actually so much more than just the flashy stuff. And
the only try where he got the assist, it was a 2-on-1, but he did it to perfection. Like it's under 11 stuff, like 2-on-1s. It should be ingrained in you, but it is fully ingrained in him, and he did it to perfection. Gave Ollie the ball at perfect right time so he could run it in. Like how often do you see those opportunities butchered, by backs?
Yeah,
because they muck it up. They don't just do the simple, correct, perfect thing and draw the man, give the ball sort of thing. It's like I think it's one of the sort of standouts of Vesti's coaching is that just basic catch pass, beat men in front of you, 2-on-1s, just simple, very very simple, but drilled it
Yeah.
to an nth degree and just kept
I mean,
simple as well.
if he wants a physical game, then he'll definitely get one with Sale. So I don't think I have to worry too much about
that.
Yeah,
That's what they said.
Before we get on
They
the
said in the
show,
interview, didn't they? They said in the interview that they knew that all 3 games were going to be physical because that's the way
Yeah.
all 3 of them played. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And to be fair, that's all the balls offered. I'm not trying to sound bad, but they literally reminded me like of, I don't know, even lower than a championship side. Just all trying to be just big smash, no flair, no running. It was very poor. I imagine, like Charles said at the start, travelling all that way and then getting your
Yeah.
asses smacked. Let's say it
Mm,
correctly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't a good day at the office. Imagine, like, so I did see a few of their fans who went travelling to come and see that as well.
You
oh,
hope that
yeah.
they're living over here and they have
You are,
I'm
yeah.
praying that they're living over here. But I mean, it just
Yeah.
I've got to tell you though, it sets up a really exciting pool because you've got
Yeah.
us and Bordeaux on 10, Bristol on 9. Like there's so many permutations about what can happen, like, we kind of need balls to help us and beat Bristol, which is at the balls. So hopefully they can,
Do us a
and other
favour.
things, and like, yeah, and Scarlets aren't to be sniffed at necessarily. Like, I know they haven't, I know they shipped 50 points against Bordeaux, but they scored some, they put up a decent fight. So it's shaping up to be a really interesting pool, which I
Yeah,
didn't necessarily think at the beginning of the season. I thought, oh God, here we go. But yeah.
it's like we said last week. Like after we got that win in Po, when we knew that the team that was coming was going to be weak from balls, it sort of,
Yeah.
like I said, and I'll take it. But we should be beating Scarlets by 50. Like we should. Like
Yeah.
we just like I know it. We can't count your chickens till they're hatched or whatever, or whatever cliche you want to say, and however polite you want to be. Northampton Saints should be putting 50 points on Scarlets easily.
No.
And if they don't, then they've got to get their act together. But I think they will, because why not? But what it
Yeah.
does is set up a brilliant decider away in Bordeaux. That the final played out again, but at their
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
Us
Yeah.
maybe with a chip on our shoulder. We're going there hopefully full strength. I'm sure Pollock will be in amongst it as well. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like it could be a really really like these games, like that Bulls game was not exciting. It was not the pinnacle of the sport which this tournament's supposed to be. It's a Champions Cup. It's supposed to be the highest
It's
level of the game, but that game will
yeah.
be if it gets to that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, 100%. It's also the difficulty with like having more teams in is you just statistically have teams that are, and I say this and I appreciate this is kind of maybe hypocritical or ironic because we only came eighth in the Prem and so without it we wouldn't have gotten through. But I feel like, by having sort of more teams in, you are having more disparity in the results. Plus the South African teams that don't tend to travel away particularly well, you get that there too. And then I think having the round of 16 is one of the worst things that they could have introduced. Like, it's great to get another home game, and I know the club loves it from a revenue perspective, but when you've got like the team that's ranked first playing the team that's ranked 16, like what exactly are you really expecting to happen? Like, some of those results that they had in that round of 16, I was like, why have we bothered? Like,
Yeah,
the whole point is to have, the whole point is to sort of have, and yeah, it was just unfortunate, I suppose, that like you said, we scored 50 with just some really exciting stuff, but yeah, you don't come away from it. And I think there's, some really, really good performances in there, but you don't come away from that like that's one for the history books or one that I'm going to remember in 10 years' time. It just isn't. Like,
the problem rugby has at the moment is its balance between commercialization, needing to play more matches so that you can sell more matches to the TV
yeah,
providers, etc., so they can grow revenue, so they can fund the sport that they're losing money in, and actually the balance in it of creating a high quality output and tournament. Like
yeah,
the URC and the Champions Cup would both be better with less fixtures.
yeah,
Less overlap. So
yeah,
you can have your South Africans. They can have a week in between if you want. If you cut the games back, if the URC went to a 10-team league, or it went back to a domestic teams that then play into a knockout round, or whatever you want to set it up,
yeah,
right? you give yourself more space in the calendar that you can go best team every week. Like 10 teams in the Prem. They're talking about expanding it to 12, which I think would be an error. But 10 is perfect, and it means that you don't get those overlaps. You can get your best team out as often as you can actually get them fit, and you get a better tournament for it. And the Pet Prem is an amazing tournament off the back of it. The Champions Cup.
I was going to say, why wouldn't you? I know it cost a bit of money, but you'd think, why wouldn't they arrange the fixtures for the South African sides for their league and their Challenge Cup? Like, just have a block, like a month block or something. So then they'd have all their best players over here, because when they travel, they come over and play a couple anyway. So it would make sense to just work with the fixture list, and then you'd have their full strength side. They'd be acclimatised because they've been over here for weeks.
But I agree with you. But then you're bending the whole competition towards one participant.
There's no right or wrong. No, there's no winning, but it's also kind of disappointing because don't get me wrong, like that full strength balls team is a scary proposition, right? Some of the South African big names they've got in there, but you still want to see them. Like I wanted them to
Victoria. Yeah. You want them to be good.
Yeah, but you sort of also want to see those at the Gardens, right? To be like, I'm coming to this game and I'm seeing like South African double World Cup winning legends playing for this team, like even just at the Gardens. Like you want to see that. Like that's what even if you increase the likelihood that maybe you aren't going to win as many matches. Like you're supposed to be seeing contests, and that's literally the last thing that was at the week. And again, this is not to disparage the balls, because I think the players and the staff and the fans probably already understand this and already feel the same way. But I mean, it just isn't. And we played them twice last year as well, didn't we? Obviously, the fixture in the balls was a little bit more competitive, but they came here for one of the, can't remember if it was the round of 16 or quarters. I think it was the quarters, and we just steamrolled them because they weren't going to send anyone, because of course they weren't. Like I said, I don't even blame them for it. It's sort of like the same with Po, right? Po, maybe it's a slightly different situation because they are in Europe and it's not as much of but it really does show how difficult it is. And it's interesting to see a French club find it difficult as well, like how difficult it is to straddle both tournaments, to be able to compete as strongly as you can in both tournaments, because they also admitted that they put a weaker side out because they're doing really well in the top 14, and that needs to be their focus. And
it's difficult for Po because Po are not a traditionally big side. So the run of form that they've had in the top 14, they're like, wow, we've got this is really important. We need to make keep all our eyes focused on this tournament, because we're at dizzy heights that we don't normally get to. So you can sort of understand that Toulouse will be going strong in everything, because they're used to being perennial winners, but it's a different one for Po. But I just think if you cut the games in the URC back, so it's maybe 2 tiers of 10 and marry it up to the Prem, so it's the same weekends, and a bit of tweaking here and there, and you'll get a better product in the Champions Cup. And don't have as many teams in the Champions Cup. Anyway, hang
on. You're just saying about that, but didn't we do that last year as well, though? We were that poor in the league, we ended up just putting all our eggs in the European basket, didn't we? So, to be fair, because we knew we weren't going to get any lower than 8th, so we knew we were all right, so we just went right. We'll go. I don't
even think that's necessarily just about how we were doing in the Prem. It's also, you've just won it, so it kind of makes sense that you kind of focus on what's the next step to take. Like, there's so many different things you can do. Like, I don't even blame, and I'm not saying I blame the Bulls for doing it. It makes complete and utter sense why they've done it. It's just unfortunate for them as well. Like I said, I kind of feel sorry for them too, because they've been put in that situation through really no kind of fault of their own, that they've had to show up, and nobody wants to be on the other side of that. It's like when we had that 90 points against Gloucester, just felt it just felt horrible. Like you can't even really celebrate it too much, because it's just like, how horrible is that? Because they also put all their eggs in one basket because they couldn't feel like they could, there's so many teams that are put in that kind of situation, but I feel like the South African teams really stand out because that is such a difficult thing to manage, and I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. And then obviously you've got the inevitable like fan disappointment that comes with losing by 50 points. Like it's just an unfortunate. And like I said, I don't really think any of the blame. I still would say maybe the players should have been a little bit more up for it. I think that you should never be. I know we say that from the comfort of our own homes, not playing the games, but when you get to a point in the game where you very obviously capitulated, then maybe there's blame on them for that. But it doesn't matter how much you're losing by, you need to try and put 80 minutes on the pitch. But I also appreciate how hard that is going to be, like mentally, physically, emotionally, when you've had to come over so early to try and get yourself ready for it. You've had to travel. Like it's just impossible, isn't it, as a situation?
But they also looked like a side that hadn't played together, didn't they? They were literally just
100%,
shot together, and you could see there's no continuity. There was nothing. They literally were just like, "Oh, we're playing a game today, and we've got no idea what we're doing." That's basically
and
their
they
game
had a couple in there. They had a couple in there that like Aka van der Merwe is a good player.
Oh yeah,
is a well known
Jasper V's.
The
two sail players.
So like they brought I think like two, maybe three, because I think I knew their captain as well. Like they brought three players over that, and even they couldn't really, there's only so much you could do. You can't carry an entire team on like the backs of a couple of seniors. So it was just, and that, like I said, in that second half, we were just absolutely firing. Like, and Charles has said it before, like when we're firing and things are going well, like I think we're really hard for any team to beat, and it just really stood out that it was going to be even harder, if that's possible. And I still would argue that, particularly in that first half, I don't think we were firing on all cylinders. Like I said, I think that could have been a 70-pointer if we'd clicked in that first half, which is,
It was mentally we just tried to push things too easily, right? Go wide too quick. We just, like I said, when Toby Tame came on, put those two little kicks through, it just seemed to reset them and give them right. Let's just go through our processes, and then when they went through their processes, they tore them apart. The other player that I thought was exceptional again, and was almost faultless, and again showed what he's so good at, was Furbank. That the way he had set up attacks, the way his first response from the back was to run and get on the outside of a defender to create an overlap on the right, on the whichever side he's attacking. I thought he was brilliant. And you said about Kemeny being back to his best. It might be worth us just spending a few minutes, because both those players are rumoured to be leaving at the end of the season. Furbank, it's almost sounding like confirmed he's going. I don't know whether it is or not, but going to Quins. And Kemeny, his contract's up, and there's no agreement as of yet as to whether he's going to stay. And I saw a thing saying the draw of home is always going to be tempting, which I'm sure it is. Especially when you see scenes like we have this week in Australia, and you miss people you love at home and all that sort of stuff. So him being from I think he is from New South Wales, but anyway, let's start with Furbank. I mean, we've lost our best player before, and in my opinion, Furbank is our best player. We've consistently lost our best players over the years. I feel that he's a player we won't replace. There aren't many George Furbanks in available to come in or do anything or be the player that he is. And the game, what he showed that was his X factor, was he showed it more so than everything, that Bulls game, in terms of his bravery, his decision making, his attacking intent from the back. He'll be a real rough loss. And when we've lost players before, they've gone for the green grass of France, and the money over there, etc. If we lose him to a Premiership rival and we have to see him play against us, that would be tough.
It's a difficult one, because and I imagine it's also really difficult for the club, because they've got so many different factors to weigh up. Like, we sort of sit here and go, it's as simple as he's our best player and you do whatever you can to keep him, but they have to factor so many different things in. And it's something we've talked about before, that like the success of the team and how many of them kind of came up as a group together, and some of them, he's a little bit older than some of the rest of them, but you've got all this talent coming through at one time, and the reality is you cannot hold on to all of them, and we know that. You've also got to factor in, he's 29, I believe they said. And so, he's still got, I'd say he's still got at least 3 years left in him, but it's also difficult, I suppose, when you're in the Saints' perspective of, do we offer him 3 years, but we don't know what's going to happen injury-wise, because we know that, he's just had some really serious ones. What if they come back up again? It's actually a much more difficult, probably, decision that they've had to make. And I think the fact that he wants to stay in the Prem obviously is telling about how much he really wants to stay in this competition, how good he sees the competition. And again, we don't know the ins and outs. I know it's been rumored we offered him 1 year, they offered him 3. Again, we really don't know the ins and outs of it, or what the truth of that is. Yeah, it will be really, really disappointing. And like you said, it's really difficult to replace. And you're right, I think that will take a lot longer before we get someone up to that level. I would still argue that we've got people in our squad that are capable of it. It's just how long it takes, how long you're without someone. I feel like, I wouldn't be surprised if Hendy to fall back becomes a more permanent move, if that was because at the moment we've got so many wingers, it's actually ridiculous. Like that, who becomes then the natural kind of successor to that position? I'd say that's probably who it is based on who's in the squad right now, which could also then be a positive because it frees up a couple of extra wingers to get more there's like positives and negatives. I still feel like it's a net negative for him to leave with the way that he's playing right now, because I would be absolutely stunned if he's not involved in the Six Nations if this form keeps up.
Well, that's the thing. That's why he's staying in England, because he's still a member of the EPS squad, so he's still getting his England upfront money. So he stays in England. But yeah, I just think it would smart a lot to see him playing in a quartered shirt, and especially what makes me so frustrated as well is, in my opinion, if he goes to Quins, he's not going to win anything ever again. Right? They are in a shambles, and they're in a shambles which is going to take a while to fix.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a really good space. We've got great squad, we've got great coaching group that's just re-signed, and going into that next World Cup, I would be very surprised if we don't win anything in that time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I fully get it. I fully get why you would. They're short careers and all that sort of stuff, but to stay in the Prem and I get it, a 3-year contract over 1. If that's the case, we don't know, like you said.
Yeah,
it's like we've done it before. The reason Ludlam left was apparently that, and the club held strong on their stance. The problem being, if the club break that stance, suddenly all these players that they've done so well to keep hold of and keep together suddenly go, hang on, I want a longer contract. Hang on, I want more money. We gave it for Herbs. So the club almost are in a position where they can only go so far without breaking the whole basket.
Without breaking the system.
Haven't we always been in the, if your player's getting to 30, we only offer them 1 year?
I think that is a rule. Yeah.
That's the thing, and obviously, if you offer him a 1-year contract, that takes him to 30. The thing is, it's one of them, innit? He's like Dingers. He's Saints through and through. He's watched them as a kid, and then he's played for him. He's the captain. Like you said, he is technically our best player, but some of the comments I read are absolutely ludicrous. But then others were like, we did manage without him. When he's on the pitch, he's another level, so he takes us to another level. But it's one of them. We managed most of last year without him, but we would have been better, probably, if he was on the pitch, obviously. So it's one of them, innit? It's you put him at fullback, we are so much better. So, I don't. Is Rami signed as well? I was thinking.
I
think he's up for his contract's up as well.
See, I'd have him at fullback personally.
There's 4 of them. So, we already knew. We said last week about Graham and Smith linked to Newcastle. Ram is also linked to Newcastle. I think everyone except Ferbs is the one that's linked to Newcastle. But I think the thing is, it just tells you where Ferbs thinks he is, right? He's confident in his ability to go for 3 more years, and so why is he not going to accept a contract that gives him the ability to do that? You literally, you can see both sides. I can see why the club would only want to go on a year-by-year basis. I also appreciate why a player wouldn't want to accept that, because if he's getting a definitive 3-year contract, it's a level of comfortableness essentially that it gives him, the insecurity. Exactly, 100%. And so it's a case of sort of he would lose out, we would lose out, but I also kind of understand the stance of both parties as well, in a way. It's such a it's such a difficult, but I would argue that if you're going to break the system, you do it for a club captain.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're gonna do it, you do it for the person who is your club captain, and he is as it stands. And that also makes it kind of sad that he wants to. well, I don't even know if saying wants to leave is the right thing. Maybe he feels like that
No,
is the move he has to make. But like,
yeah,
if you're in a position where your club captain feels he's got to make a move away, like, is there a question that you're not doing something right? Like, it's such a difficult it is such a difficult situation. But it does sound like, unfortunately, from at least, and obviously you never know how much stock to put in different people saying things, but it sounds like it's essentially a done deal, and we're just waiting for the ball to drop, as it were, for us to be finally told. But
yeah. You'd have hoped there could have been a compromise whereby I think if they gave him a 2-year deal, that would have got him to the next World Cup. And I
yeah,
think if you could have done that, and then he'd have had his EPS, gone into the next World Cup, he'd have earned he'd have being at Saints will put him in the best position to go to that World Cup. That's a big selling point
yeah,
for the club, right? And then you compromise a bit there, get him there, and then to be honest with you, after that he could probably go off to France and earn a fortune, etc. Off the back of playing in a World Cup for England, etc. But like that would be a nicer storytelling ending for one of
yeah.
our best players over the last
Maybe we
decade
just
or
need to
whatever.
maybe we just need to pray that it's like a masterful move by his agent and that everything's
Yeah,
actually fine. I'll hold on to that until we find out the inevitable that he's leaving. But
yeah.
for
Because
now,
I
I'm
didn't.
just gonna
I
for
didn't
now I'm
think
gonna
you could talk
pretend
to
that his
players.
agent's great.
I didn't think you could
saying,
talk to players till like January, but I thought it was the last 6 months of their contract.
yeah, I
I
think
don't
that's
know.
a theory that's I don't think it happens in reality. I think that
No.
is a rule, but I don't think
Maybe
there's
they're
It's
doing
players
it's
that
like
the only
don't
a
know.
worry. The only worry is the fact that we've signed Pollock, Mitchell, Moon, Dingers,
That was,
Bin, not Moon, not
not
Moon.
Moon. I know you mean.
You know what I mean.
that was a drop of
Draft.
information for everyone.
Yeah, sorry, we haven't
Yeah.
signed Moon.
Well,
Oh, I can't even think of his name. The lock. Have we not re-signed
Coles.
him?
Coles.
Coles. Yeah. So like they're like your 5 England players that are in the and Ferbs isn't like in that list, so it doesn't look good, does it?
I mean, yeah, let's fingers crossed. I mean, the thing is, you look at our back three options at the moment. We've got Ferbs, Freeman, Slighto, and you've got Ram, Hendy, Todoro. Like the options there are just insane. That like either any of those players could play, and you'd have one of the best back threes in the Premiership.
Yeah.
And so the sort of ability to maintain that standard in this Premiership, where there's money is different around the table, teams, etc., is almost impossible. So it's inevitable that this team won't last forever. It will get that we
Yeah.
will lose and they'll have to
I think
rebuild and stuff.
I think to
But
be
it
honest,
means there's
we're
pressure on winning this year. I think a lot of pressure on winning
yeah,
this year because
something
the
this year,
squad is
yeah.
so good at the moment.
I think as well, it's just like we've actually gotten really lucky that we've been able to hold on to them for as long as we have. I actually think we've probably been quite lucky for quite a long time. And that, the people that we have been able to lock down this year, like on new contracts seeing us through, like we're really lucky we've been able to keep like Mitch, Dingers, Pollock, Coles, all those people that we mentioned, like that are staying and are remaining. Like it almost felt like someone's going to have to go somewhere. Like that one's got to give at some point. Like we're going to get bad news. We can't keep just getting this person's resigning, this person's resigning. And look, it will be a shame if it is. Like I said, all we can go on at the moment is that the strong indication seems to be that he is going to sign for them and he is going to move. Um, and yeah, it's one of those where it would definitely really suck because you can't help but feel that if we'd offered him the ability to stay for longer, he'd have wanted to just be a one club man, like for
Yeah,
a long and maybe we just hope that he had so much fun at the weekend that he's actually just desperate to stay with this group of players. Who knows? Like,
like you say,
sometimes
it's probably
sometimes it is little things like that. Sometimes it can just be right. I don't really know, and then you have a really good game where you have so much fun, and like Dingers and Mitch and the others have said, like in their sort of interviews afterwards, like I just get to go and have fun and play rugby with my mates, like and that's been like such a winning kind of personality of the squad to keep people around. But yeah, it can't last forever. And yeah, it would definitely be a shame and it'll be a really big loss. And like you said, I think that'd be really difficult to replace, certainly in the short term. I do think we've got talent there that's capable, but I think we're still perhaps a couple seasons
yeah.
off of that,
I
which
don't think we've
is
got
the
quite the
difficulty. But
talent that replaces what Furbank brings. Like, I mean, it's an X
no,
factor that no isn't really
yeah,
that's it's
yeah,
missing elsewhere. I
Not,
think it's not a knock on anyone else. It's just like he's got something that not many players have. is what it does is bravery, is attacking instincts, etc. And
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to do that. And I think that we are victims of our own successive development. We keep bringing through these players who are like, oh, they're the next great thing. They're really fantastic. Todoro, for example, Pollock, obviously, like that. Suddenly they need proper contracts, and so you run out of money pretty quick if you keep giving all these youngsters that keep developing proper contracts.
And the thing is, if someone said that, you get to keep that system that brings through all that talent, but it means every so often you might lose a Fairbank-esque type of person, I think I'd still take that, to be honest. I'd still keep the system that we've got at Northampton, the way that we do it, the talent that we bring up, the closeness between them. Like, I think that's gotten us where we are over the past sort of 3 seasons. Like, so yeah, it's like the give and take, isn't it? I think the system that we've got is, and I think the way that we do things is the best in the country. And obviously people will go like, you're biased. Great, sure. But, I think the talent that we bring up, the youth that we bring up, that we stick with them, they come in, they play, they get contracts, they get to create this really good, like, cohesive unit. Like, I genuinely think it's second to none in the entire Prem. But it also means that eventually, you have a lot of talent and you have to make the room somewhere. Like,
you just go through the team that played the balls: Furbank, Slytone, Hutchinson, Dingle, Hendy, Mitchell, Wright, Coles, Pollock, Iogan. Looking at the rest of the Prowse, Tane.
Yeah.
All of those boys came through the academy, and there's plenty more in the squad as well. Like I think we can do more than that. By the way, you look at the best clubs in the world, like the Crusaders or Leinster. Almost 100% of their side comes from their own production line. But what we've got in terms of other Prem teams is outstanding. But it's like every year we do end up losing one of our best players.
Yeah. Like you said, Charles, like you said, it's probably security, isn't it? He's been really badly injured the last couple of seasons. So if someone's offering you 3 years, you're going to snap it up. If Saints are only offering 1 and he has, God wish it doesn't happen and touch wood and anything. If he had another injury, it could be, that's it. If you've got your 3 years, you get that payment, don't you? So
yeah.
I do understand it. It works for everybody, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it was just it'll be weird seeing him in a different team in the Premiership.
In the Prem, yeah. It's just like I said, it's a shame they couldn't get him to the World Cup and then let him sail off to France.
That's what I think. I feel like that maybe is a compromise if if it's a case of we're offering 1, they're offering him 3, he really wants to take the 3. Like, maybe our compromise is you offer the 2. You go, right, we can't do 3 because we don't feel like we can push 3, but we understand you want to make it to a World Cup. That may be attractive enough to keep him. Like, but like I said, we're not behind closed doors. We don't know the ins and outs. For all we know, it's a signing he feels like he's got to make for security, but perhaps it's not one he really wanted to or thought he was going to have to make. But it's an impossible situation. But
it's
if he is listening, please
they say, oh, we're doing everything we can to try and sign him. Well, you hope that that's true and that they're not. If it's a case of give him another year, well, give him another year. Like, if I get the point of not wanting to not breaking your rules and or your philosophy of how you do things and not wanting to go to 3 years, etc. Not that may be too far, but surely there's a bit of compromise and just stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and going, well, hang on, no, to get him to the next World Cup cycle probably works for everyone, because we're in such a strong position because we would be able to give him an outstanding platform to get there. Whereas I'm not slagging off Quins, but I'm sure their fans know that they're in a real bad state of affairs in terms of that they've got a sort of round door approach in terms of their coaching staff. It changes consistently. Their defence has been shambolic for the last 3 seasons. They haven't challenged the top ends of any tournaments. They're not a team that are going to win things, and their philosophy is fundamentally wrong at the moment. We're in really good place because everything is good.
Yeah,
people want to play for us, so you're in a good negotiation space, but you've got to bend a bit. You got to look at it from his point of view.
But then, and I also appreciate as well, like, the club has also been very clear of, like, and you've got other clubs that spend right up to the capacity of what they can do, and we do in some ways and not in others, and, like, we're doing financially we're doing, I don't know if well is really the right term, but comparatively we're doing all right. And I get that it's also a balancing act of how do you keep the club in that state of affairs whilst also being competitive. Like, I don't envy anyone that has to be involved in all of those discussions because it's such a hard balance to kind of do and get right. And the reality is, you know, the game as well is, I mean, obviously, I don't think we're ever going to end up in a situation like Wales, for example, that's just absolutely just collapsed in on itself. But you know, you don't want to get to a situation where more clubs are struggling and things are happening, and so there's so many different aspects to like these contract negotiations that I don't envy anyone that has to kind of, you know, be involved in them. Because I mean, you're seeing with Wales at the moment, the amount of them that have just all started signing for clubs in England, like that's just going to implode. You know, I'm surprised it hasn't already. You know, that it hasn't completely just collapsed.
Yeah, they won't have much left. And let's be honest with you, like the harsh reality of it is the players are a major stakeholder in the game and they deserve to be well remunerated for what they do. They deserve a large share of the income of the sport. What they don't deserve is more income than the sport makes, and that's the current scenario. Right? The players are being paid more money than the clubs are making. So, you know, that's not right. Put in?
Yeah,
but yeah, well, but no, that's right. The those clubs who overspend, and you know, there's a very good in that you go. If you've not heard the story of a club, you know, down the M1 that you know spent a bit too much, right? There's plenty of news articles and opinions on there to go and look at it. But that in doing so, they've inflated the whole wages in the Prem. Everyone's getting paid more than they should be being paid, and where clubs went bust because of it, right? Because the clubs aren't making any money, and yet they're paying out hundreds of thousands of pounds. You know, they're paying what some of the clubs are paying 4 or 5 million, or potentially up to 8 million. The bigger clubs, and they're not making that much money. So, like, it makes no sense as a business model, and that money's got to come from somewhere. And the fans can't keep putting their hands in their pockets to fund it. So, like, it's anyway. But let's move away. The quick look head to Sale, and we'll do a quick prediction because we probably covered a bit more than that than I thought we would. I mean, Sale are basically Sale, aren't they? Well, it's gonna be physical. They had a big win at the weekend away at Claremont, which what an experience that would have been. They'll be buzzing off of the back of that. But it'll be a Sale, big physical. They've got some tidy backs. If George Forge plays, it's a different kettle of fish. Yeah. But otherwise, we know what to expect. It's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. And Finn will want to put Mr. Ford in his place as well, won't he?
If he's fit,
yeah. It's hard with them.
Who's not fit?
It's not hard as well because
Ford might not be fit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, there was an article of like it's like a that they're not 100% sort of where he's going to be. So he may not. I
thought you meant Finn. I was panicking then.
No.
No.
As far as I'm aware,
he's as far as we're on away, he's fine. Because that was my sort of like my heart sort of popped up into my mouth when Hutch went off because I thought it was going off because of injured, but then I saw the speed at which he was running down the tunnel, and I was like, oh, okay, it must be like a blood injury or something like that. And obviously it was. It came back, but I think we're in like decent. We're in decent form. We're in decent fitness. Like, there's obviously still some people that we'd love to have back. You know, it would be really nice to have Tommy back, but you also can't really fault the wingers from the weekend. Like, Ollie made a couple of mistakes, but I honestly genuinely would even go so far as to say like he's not really at fault. Like, there were at least two horrible passes that I'm like, you've really dropped him in it here. Like, how do you expect him to get out of this?
Because we were trying to go too fast, too wide, too quick, and
you know, so is it like at the absolute full level of maybe who we'd pick if we had everyone? No, because I still think you'd have like Toby in there, for example. But otherwise, I think we're doing pretty well. We're improving game on game. I still don't think we're at 100%. I still think there's a little way, not a large gap. I don't think it's a large gap anymore. Like how far off we were at Bristol. Like, I think there's still improvements that we could definitely make. But it's definitely going to be a physical encounter, and hopefully that kind of brings out the best in us. Like, Sale are always like a difficult team, obviously, like on the road, like they're really, really hard to get a win against. I think I'd still back us at home. You know, our home, even though our away form last year in the Prem was dreadful, our home form wasn't too shabby overall. Like we won't talk about the Leicester game at home, but like some, you know, generally speaking, our form at home was good. So you know, you'd still kind of back them to win, and we should have Tadaro back this weekend, right? That's his 2 games done.
Yeah,
Done?
Tadaro will be in the mix. Yeah, like you said, it'd be good to get Langdon back in the mix. It'd be good to get Lockett back in the mix. I don't think they're going to be back, but there's not many
Langdon,
more
they
players
said,
to come back. Chick will
Langdon,
come in, I think.
They said Langdon, they were hoping Christmas time, so I'm assuming perhaps he'll be back maybe for the away fixture that we have on that weekend, but who knows? Yeah, there's still a few. And to be honest, like, I don't think he's coming Swanee back into that team because I think Craig Wright is playing phenomenally well right now. So, I still think we're kind of firing really well. The scrum, sometimes we gave away some penalties over the weekend, but otherwise it's actually performing quite well, I think. It's performing quite strongly.
I
and that's going to be really important against a
I
team
don't think they were actual penalties. I think they were just because they were not taking the pressure at all. They were fake penalties, in my opinion. I'm not going to judge Charlie, but they were absolutely mullered in that scrum.
How good are Iogan and Candiana off the bench? Like 2 weeks in a row now. Wow, absolutely. Come on and been immense.
And I feel like they might, they've now had Fischetti 2 games in a row. I wouldn't be surprised if we do actually see Iogan start this weekend, just because every so often they do like to kind of just flip them around just because of, management, all kinds of different things. So maybe you'll see him start, and then maybe, I don't know, there's a few different things they might do, but I really wouldn't tweak with that team too much, because we've talked before about, the struggle sometimes is when they aren't playing together and they're finally starting to get some good minutes between some of them, creating good partnerships, good backlines, good forward momentum, like in the scrum, etc. Like the lineouts functioning really well. Like I really wouldn't mess with it too much. Like they need to keep consistently playing. Like I wouldn't really make any, other than like a bit of rotation from bench to starting if they feel like they need to, but otherwise I really wouldn't be tweaking too much with the 23 overall. There'll be a couple, I think, because I think sometimes there has to be, but
I think Chick might come back into the side.
Yeah,
I think maybe Anthony Bellew might be back fit. He was warming up. I think he could come into the 23 jersey. Even though you can't fault Tame, like Tame well deserves his spot. So like it's just, there's a lot of talent. It's a tough call for them. And Sale offer a very similar challenge to what the Bulls offered. So but better. I mean, Sale are a top side, so it will be great. But like I'm really excited because like we go into that Bulls game and the atmosphere was dead and the game was like naff really, and it's a different tournament back in the Prem, proper challenge against a proper side, with our best team out. It's going to be exciting. So let's get into some predictions. Last week I will just round up and say we all well under the margin. We all got the result right, and Hendy got it for Sai, so Sai got another and is storming away. I think, didn't we say once that if you get a hat trick, you lose you get minus points or something?
No, you get 3 points.
But yeah, so Sai takes another point in the lead.
Literally, the only thing I got right was I said we'll get 50. But yeah, I grossly overestimated the Bulls' ability to turn up.
Well, again, we did what we did for Poe, didn't we? We didn't know the selection, so we didn't know they weren't going to send half that team.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we did for the Bulls. We did for the Bulls because they said really early on, they were like, we're not bringing X, Y, Z. And I was like, oh, okay.
We all went with a pretty big, we all went 30-ish. Both me and Sai went 33 margin. Jess, you went 29 margin. We all went big.
Yeah,
we just weren't expecting it to be that poor, really.
That poor, no.
Yeah.
But anyway. I went first last week. So
Sai first, yeah. Yes.
35, 22. And I'll stick with the Ginger Ninja.
This is what I did last year that took me to success, was basically back Hendy every week.
Just back Hendy every week, yeah.
Jess, it is you next.
I think it's going to be close, unfortunately. Well, maybe fortunately, maybe it'll be a great game. I'm going to go 32-30. I'm going to go... I always want to pick a forward because I feel like everyone else goes for the backs, but at the moment it's just all the backs.
Points, are they?
Don't you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna go for Colsey.
He is on fire. Following Mitch around the pitch.
I'm gonna go for the Man Mountain Giraffe to storm his way over.
Right, I'm gonna go a lot. I'm not gonna go such a high score. I think it'll be a bit of a tighter fixture.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
go
fair.
25-21, and I'm gonna go with Mitch. I'm gonna say he's not gonna pass the Coles this time. He's gonna score himself.
Yeah. Hey,
Um,
maybe they'll each pass to each other and they'll both score one.
yeah, but then
Against
there's
his
no
own club.
Yeah, sort of. He got released by them, didn't he? So
He
in
did.
the academy, he didn't make it out of their academy, so we signed him into our senior academy. So he still is
Yeah.
an academy player. You know,
He still is, yeah.
but anyway, thanks very much for listening. It's been another good chat. Funny, quite a few bits to talk about there, even though that the games was what it was. But yeah, thanks for listening. I've been Charles. Jess has been Jess. Simon's been Simon. Please remember to follow us on all our socials so you get the podcast first. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.